Hey, welcome to Speak Live. What's up, everybody? I am your host, DJ Anthony. Today, private versus public schools. Always check with your professionals. Don't listen to me. I don't know shit. Okay. Actually, I do know something. I'm an expert on this topic because as a youngster, I was a product of public school and private school. So I've been to both public and private. And as a teacher, I taught in private school and I taught in public school. And my businesses right now work in both public and private. So I know a little something. And you might be wondering, well, where should you send your kid? Public or private? Which one's better? So that's today's episode. Hey, like and subscribe, Struns, okay? I could use some help here. Help me out in Jersey, yeah? So, private versus public schools. Now, it's not that anyone is right or wrong. It's just different. And depends what you're looking for. But here's some of the things that I've noticed over the decades and years of me being in the schools and working there and just being a product of them too. Multiple ones, by the way. So I'm giving you my take. You got your take, whatever. So first, for starters, private schools versus public, the facilities. Typically, generally speaking, a public school is going to have a better building, a better structure, a better facility than a private school. Why? Because public school has the government's money. Private school doesn't. Private school's got mommy daddy money, which, I don't care who you are, unless it's like the most elite school in the whole world. All right, then you got a leg up on the government schools, public. But 99.999% of the time, yeah, the public school is going to have better facilities. They're going to have better basketball courts, better gymnasiums, better classrooms, better science labs, better cafeterias, better floors, better ceilings, better walls. Things get repaired quicker. It's just because they got more money, more funding, period. That's not to say that private schools got, a cardboard box, but you can see the difference, because again, they got better means to maintain buildings and renovate and add things on, et cetera, et cetera. Sports. Typically, private schools have less sports programs than private schools. So private schools have less sports programs than public, excuse me. It is what it is. Now, again, if you're in certain areas of the country, yeah, a football program might be better in a private school possibly than a public school, or a wrestling program, or they might have some sports that are different than public. For the most part, public schools are going to have, again, that government money. They're going to have more sports programs and bigger sports programs, generally speaking. I know. I used to coach at both public and private. Teachers, which is the heart and soul, right? Generally speaking, private school is going to have teachers that come in either fresh out of college. They got no experience or 1 or 2 years experience. That's a private school. Private schools also have a lot of people who are retired teachers or retired from industry, where public schools typically have teachers in their prime, teachers in their late 20s, 30s, they got a ton of energy, they got a lot of cachet and experience. That's most teachers' goal, is to get into the public school system because the pay is better, the benefits are better. So generally speaking, you're going to get a better teacher. Not that the teachers aren't great in the private schools, it's just that they're not typically at the peak of their careers. They're either 21 years old and just got out of college, or they're 81 years old and they were at the top of their game, but not anymore. And again, I understand there's exceptions. I know your teacher was the best, and I get that. It's not that the teachers don't care, but we're talking about experience. We're talking about energy level. Again, they're at their prime. They're in their 20s, 30s, 40s. That's typically going to be, a teacher in public school. Not all the time, but generally speaking. And again, a lot of great private school teachers. Not saying they're not, but let's be honest. Money, you got to pay bills, right? You're going to gravitate towards where where the money is, public school. And public school attracts, generally speaking, teachers in their prime. And I mean prime physically too, not just knowledge. Because yes, an 81-year-old teacher, although retired, has more knowledge than a 31-year-old teacher. But do they have the energy? You know what I mean? So matters. Teaching's a physical job. Anyways, I would also say in private schools, you have more of a family setting where, quote unquote, the school cares more. And that's, I say that kind of sarcastically, but not that public schools don't care. But in private schools, everyone kind of, generally speaking, has to pitch in to make the school work. The moms, the dads, the aunts, the uncles, the neighbors, because they don't have the money that the government schools have. So you tend to find, generally speaking, more of a family atmosphere at public schools, parochial schools, Jewish schools, Muslim schools, private schools, whatever, which is nice. People tend to quote unquote care a little more. Again, generalization, but it's obvious. Drugs, bullying, sex, keeping my kids away from bad influences. Now, this is funny because people think like, oh, if I send my kid to a private school, there won't be anything bad that'll ever happen, or there'll be less problems. Wrong, 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 wrong. There's more drugs and more problems in private school than public, actually. When you go pound for pound, student for student, foot for foot, room for room, no way. No way. Because private schools, kids have money. They don't have to hustle. They can just get the drugs 1, 2, 3. And when they get pinched for doing drugs or breaking the laws, mommy and daddy got lawyers and they bail them out. So you never know that shit went down. In the public schools, people got to hustle. When they get caught for stuff, they get punished, rightfully so. So it's very, very tricky. Not to say that there's the kids in private school are bad or the kids in public school are good. No, there's good and bad in all. But if you think you're going to send your sweet little darling to a private school or a Catholic school, and you think like, oh, there won't be any drugs there or very little drugs. Of course, I know that 1 or 2 kids do drugs and there'll be very little bullying. No, 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 no. Wrong, 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 wrong. There's more drugs, more bullying, more sex in the private schools than in the public schools. You just, come on. This is like the inverse now. That not that kids in public don't have means. There's a lot of kids that go to public school that are billionaire families, but for the most part, the private school kids, they got a little bit more means, generally speaking. And with that, you get away with a lot of shit. So, and I'm not saying all the kids are bad in a private school or all the kids are good in a public school or vice versa, but I'm just saying, if you think you're going to shelter your kids from any kind of negative influences, you're sadly mistaken, by the way. So, okay. So the size of classes, typically, size of classes are smaller in a private school versus a public. Duh, because most people can't afford private, so you can have a smaller class, which is not bad. That's good. Teachers get to know the kids a little better and things like that. Your kid going to Harvard because they went to a private school versus a public, again, misnomer. I would say it's easier to go to Harvard from a public school than a private school because I had a friend of mine many years ago when we were in school, and I said, wow, dude, you're so smart and you have money. Why wouldn't you go to a private school? Why are you here with us in this public school as kids, And he said to me, Anthony, I'm an amazing student in this public school. But if I go to a private school, I'm just an average student. So I want to stick out. That's why I'm in this public school. So he was right. He went on to NYU. He's doing very well for himself from a public school. And the public school I went to wasn't exactly the greatest of public schools. So, I mean, it's, yeah, it really is what the kid makes it, the family makes it. If you don't go to private school, you're not going to be homeless. Cut it out. You'll be fine going to public school, and you're not going to die. You're not going to be you're not going to be a bum because you didn't go to private school. And by the way, most of the people that I know that are struggling now went to private school. Not most of the people that I know went to public. I know more people struggling in life after private schools. I know less people struggling in life that went to public schools. Now, I'm not saying you can't struggle if you went to public. Yes, there's people who are struggling in all schools. But my observation, most people who struggle went to private schools. Like we're talking unfortunately became homeless, or they're just working at a warehouse. Nothing wrong with working at a warehouse, but you spend all this money on private school, you think you'd be a neurosurgeon or whatever, So now, true, people go to private school, become neurosurgeons, and become millionaires and billionaires, but so do they in public too. So it's like, and so I think the gray area is if you're in a really good public school system, why the heck would you pay for private school? You know what I mean? So there are towns like here in New Jersey that have, I mean, amazing, amazing public high schools, the best of the best. And then literally like right down the road, there's a private high school. And sometimes parents opt to put their kid in the private school. And I'm like, wait a second, you have one of the best high schools in the country, public, that you're paying taxes for. What? So now we're just talking about ego, because your kid's not going to go to a better college, and your kid's not going to become more successful because they went to that high school down the road in this particular Jersey area. That's just foolish, But now I get it. If you live in a really bad town where every day is shootings and stabbings, and you can get your kid bust out or drive them out to a private school, fair enough. Yes, that makes sense. But, it's usually not that extreme. So I don't know. I mean, anyways, I think the ace card in all of this as a former teacher is parents, 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 family and parents, family and parents, family and parents. When you got parents that give a shit, and I'm talking about two parents. And I understand, someone that came from a single family household and they're an astronaut making $1 trillion a day. I get that. But look at the stats. Typically, when you have two people in the household, I don't care if it's two dads, two moms, a mom and a dad, or whatever, grandparents and the mom and dad, or whatever, when you got that unit around that child or children that's on them every day, that cares every day, wants to know where they are, where they're going, who their friends are, steps in every day is on top of these kids, that kid has a 99.9% chance of being successful in life, whether they're a lawyer or an electrician or a welder or an engineer, whatever. That kid's gonna have. So that's the ace card. I don't give a shit what school you go to. When you have that home that gives a shit, that's the ace card. That's where you're gonna really make the most success. So, and of course, the kid has a choice too, right? If you want a kid, if a kid just wants to be an asshole, then I guess that, you can only bring a horse to the water. You can't make it drink. But usually, kids will follow whatever their families are encouraging them to do and helping them to do. So that's the real ace card above what school you go to, honestly. So, but anyways, I don't know. Hope that helps out. That's been my experience. So thanks for checking in, and like and subscribe, Struns. Okay, I'm out of here. DJ Tony, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.